This is w.e.b. News and Radio.
Ron Hurd. Get up out of bed. Let's go. Let's go. Ron Hurd. That's the word. Get out of bed. Give me a jingle. My number 051. Get out of bed. Let's go. Don't be afraid. This is Herb Smith calling you. Herb Smith. All right, I know you're famous and all that kind of stuff, but let's go. Get out of bed.
And welcome, Black family, to another wonderful edition or edutainment edition of the Artist Presents W.e.b. News and Radio. I'm your host for the empowerment segment, Brother Ron, also known as R2, C2, H2, the Artist. And thank you once again for tuning in. It's a very important show that we're having. Today's topic, of course, of discussion is Death in 60 Days, the Booker T. Washington murder conspiracy. Exposed. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, scholars and laymen. Today's topic and subject is Death in 60 Days, the Booker T. Washington murder conspiracy. Exposed. Feel free, family, to join us for this very important conversation. Call-in number for today's show, as always, area code 646-652-4593. Once again, that's area code 646-652-4593. And if you're scared to get on the air, we open up the chat room. So feel free to type in your comments, questions, and responses to today's show. Who knows, it might be read on the air to our special and featured guests. And let's just get into the background for this show. Our featured guest, of course, is Sister Paulette Davis-Horton, a.k.a. the History Lady, who is the author of Death in 60 Days, Who Silenced Booker T. Washington. Let me tell you a little bit about the book. It's available on Amazon.com, and the book traces the last days of the life of Booker T. Washington, founder of Tuskegee Institute, now known as Tuskegee University. He was on vacation in Mobile, Alabama from September 18, 1915 through October 1st, 1915, where he relaxed, fished, and hunted. On October 17, 1915, he made his last speech to the student body on the importance of teamwork. His last public appearance was in New Haven, Connecticut on October 25th, 1915. A week later, while in New York, the newspapers reported that he had a nervous breakdown and was aging rapidly. The hospital record, dated November 1st, 1915, stated that he had no mental symptoms. After reviewing all the documentation using various sources, a professional nurse will show that Booker T. Washington was the victim of a cleverly planned assassination. Additionally, the death of this leader is associated with the 40-year Tuskegee Syphilis Study. This book is very thought-provoking and interesting. It will make you want to look deeper into the story. The reader will see how this great leader enjoyed a restful vacation along the Gulf Coast, and within 60 days he was dead and buried. His death changed the course of American history. See if you can figure out who silenced Booker T. Washington. Now let me tell you a little bit of background about the author. Sister Paulette Davis-Horton has been a registered nurse for over 20 years. She is the author of the history book called Avenue, the Davis Avenue Story, and the co-author of In Memory of You, An Educational Legacy, a book which highlights school names in Mobile, Alabama. She is currently completing a history of the historic black churches in Mobile, Alabama, which I really do believe it was released recently. We'll talk a little about that as well. Upon retirement, she plans to become a preschool teacher. Okay, without further ado, let's see if we can get the Honorable Sister Paulette Davis-Horton on the line. Let's check my line.
Hello.
Hey, Sister Paulette, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm blessed and highly favored. The day has come. This is the most exciting time of the week for me. It's today's show.
Oh, yes. Yes, how you been doing?
I've been doing good. I'm still alive. I'm still trying to thrive and keep on producing and pushing. How about yourself?
Oh, just great. We have a wonderful weather here along the Gulf Coast, and it's just a good time to go fishing and just relaxing with your family. It
definitely is always a good time to do that. But I always want to thank you, first and foremost, for coming on the show today. People have been waiting patiently. I've been getting a lot of emails and text messages and Facebook messages and tweets about this show coming up today. People are very excited to hear about what you have to say about the subject of Booker T. Washington's death.
Okay.
So I just want to ask you about yourself. Like, how did you get involved in this in the first place, you being a nurse?
Okay. First, I would like to, tell your listeners a little bit about myself, and you can, and that way they'll understand how I got to that point.
Okay.
Okay. I am the third oldest of 8 children. My father was a janitor. My mother was a domestic worker to support all of us because my father was hospitalized in my early childhood. And a domestic worker is a person that works for white people, and you get paid, daily. And there were some advantages to that because if my mother worked for these people and they had children our ages, then we can get their clothes or toys, anything that was discarded, which that was a plus because we enjoyed having those things. They were used, but they served our purpose, So when I was 17 years old, I went to B.C. Rain High School, and the guidance counselor called all the seniors in for an interview, and she said, well, Paulette, I see where you want to be a nurse. And I said, yes, I was excited about that. She said, well, it's going to be very difficult for you. And she said, the reason is because of your ACT score. She said, you are a C student, and you made a 2 on your ACT. But, see, that didn't bother me because I didn't know what you had to make, and I didn't know, the 2 was good or it was bad. I didn't know. And I said, what did I do? I made it. She said, you made a 2. And I said, well, is that good? She said, well, it's below the national average. That's what she said. But it still didn't mean anything because I didn't even know anything about national average. All I knew is I wanted to be a nurse. So after receiving rejection letters, I was not able to get into the university that I wanted to get into, or Providence School of Nursing. So what happened was I went to a junior college, and then I graduated. Then I went back to the I entered the University of South Alabama, and then after a year with all these courses, statistics and biochemistry, I flunked out. And I had a score of .49 average, which was an F average. And I don't know because I was trying as hard as I could, but I just couldn't learn. My mind had gotten shut off or something. And I got suspended. And I made one last effort. I went to the president of the University of South Alabama, and I begged for another chance because I really wanted to be a nurse. And he told me I had to leave the university. So I did, and that day, it was a beautiful, maybe a spring day, I drove down to the Gulf of Mexico, and I just sat on the sand, and I just cried because I was at rock bottom. I was, with I had a collie, and so I was just playing with my collie and just watching the water. But I was unhappy because I didn't like the way rock bottom felt, and I felt no one understood me. I felt like the way a mangy dog would feel if no one, warned him at their house. That's kind of the way that I felt. Okay, so in 1977, I enrolled in a medical secretarial school, and I became a medical secretary. And in 1982, when I was filing a chart, this pleasant voice told me, now it's time for you to go back to nursing school. And I thought that was the most wonderful thing in the world. So I called Mobile College, and they said, we would love to have you at our school. And then I called the University of South Alabama, and they told me, well, you called at the right time because we're doing what is called academic forgiveness. Anyone who has failed before, they can come back, and you will be the first student to enroll in that program. So I did go back, and I enrolled, and I graduated from the University of South Alabama with, but at that time I had gotten married, and I had 2 toddlers. And the hard part about it was going back to school with 2 toddlers. I didn't have a car, but my mother purchased a red wagon for me. And I transported my children to the babysitter in a red wagon, and I caught the City Line bus to school for 4 years, and I did graduate. The good thing about it, they offered a course called pathophysiology. That's the study of diseases and how diseases works in the body, abnormal disease organs and everything. And they didn't offer that course in earlier years if I had attended the school. So I learned that course so well that I tutored it. Now, 1988, let's fast forward to 1987. I started my career at the Mobile County Health Department, and I wanted to work with teenage pregnancies, but they said, no, you'll be better in home health. So they put me in home health, and I loved it. I worked in home health for 20 years, so I was familiar with high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, comas, and, things like that because that's all I worked with. Now, in 1988, I was leaving one of my patients' homes, and this pleasant voice said, I want you to write a history of Davis Avenue. And I was just wondering, where did that come from, And I said, that's a good idea. So Davis Avenue is a street in our hometown that was popular at one time, but the area has kind of gone down now. It's not. So many people look at it as though it's just nothing, but there was a lot of rich history there that was not recorded. So after 2 years of research, I learned that Booker T. Washington used to visit Davis Avenue, and I did not know that. In fact, I didn't know his connection to Mobile, and that's when I learned that he spent his last vacation in Mobile, and many of the elderly people, they actually knew him. So now, in the year, I needed someone to help me write this. I had finished the research. I needed someone to help me to make it into a book. So this guy named Bobby Buck, he had a Buck Publishing. He said, at first he didn't want to help me, but when I explained to him that Booker T. Washington used to visit there, he started looking at it a little differently, and he said, I think he'd say, I'll help you, only because he was an admirer of Booker T. Washington. So in 1991, we published Avenue, the Davis Avenue story. Now let's go to the year 2000. I started writing a history of the black churches, and I wanted to talk to old pastors. And I was in 2003. I interviewed a pastor, and I asked him. I said, "Tell me some things that your mentors told you." And he said, "Well, they said stay away from wine and stay away from drinking and stay away from women." He said those 2 things can cause you to lose your pastorate more than anything else. And then I was talking to the pastor, and I said, I've been working on this book since 2000, and I said, the people in the church are so nice. Everyone is nice and just wonderful. And he said, now, Miss Horton, there's a dark side. But I didn't know what he meant by that. He said he wanted to give me an example. And he said, take, for example, what they did to Booker T. Washington. And I said, what did they do? What he was saying is as though I may have heard it before, but I hadn't. I I didn't hear anything about Booker T. Washington. And he said on his last trip to the North after he left Mobile, a group of African Americans, he was dining with a group of African Americans, but he decided not to have his meal with them. He just said he's going to go upstairs and have his meal by himself. The group of African Americans got a Haitian to put poison in his food, take it upstairs, and serve it to him. The Haitian came down and told this group of African Americans, the deed is done, I loaded it. Okay, now this group waited downstairs because they wanted to see the aftermath of what they had done. Now, the next time they saw him, the pastor said, when they saw Booker T. Washington again, his face was all distorted, and he was saying they had to summon the doctor. Their goal was to kill him, but he wasn't dead. Mm-hmm. And Booker T. Washington was saying, I don't want to die in the North. And they summoned the doctor, and the doctor said, this man is sick, and he is not going to make it back home. So they called it, the pastor told me they was going to call it racial characteristics, and no one will ever know what that meant. You follow me so far?
We're here, yeah, listening.
Okay, now the pastor was telling me this in 2003. I had no way to research this. And so from 2003 to 2006. So one day I was sitting in my office, and I heard this pleasant voice said, turn your computer on. And I turned my computer on, and there was a caption that said, it's a mystery. Booker T. Washington's death is being revisited, a case of racial characteristics. And I was shocked because that was what the pastor told me. And I was wondering how did they know this, So, I was shocked in seeing this, and they put Booker T. Washington records was online. And as I was reading the record, I was noticing that it said his neck vein was this, tortuous, non-compressible. And it kind of matched what that pastor had told me. But the pastor had never seen these records before, and I was wondering, how did he know this? So the blood pressure, they said this man was admitted to Rockefeller Hospital on November the 1st, and they said he was lying in bed, restless, moving constantly, blood pressure 225 over 145. His temperature was 102.6, and he had respirations of 34. I mean, he was breathing, rapidly. Okay, and they said so I was curious to know his past medical history. So I looked at his past medical history, and they said 20 years ago he had an attack of malaria that lasted 2 to 3 weeks. Now, that was 20 years ago. And since that time, no other illnesses. So I'm just trying to wonder why all of a sudden this person just got off vacation, no history of any sort, but now he's hospitalized in what y'all consider, a critical condition. And I talked to another pastor, and I was surprised that so many people already knew. And I re-interviewed the people that I had previously spoke to when I interviewed them for my Davis Avenue book. And one lady, she said, oh, yes, everybody knows about it. Daddy prayed about it. Daddy was so outdone, he didn't know what to do. He told us how they poisoned him. So it was not a secret. And I talked to another pastor, and, I had to go to his house because he was excited. He said, you're not supposed to talk about that. And I'm going, I said, that was 92 years ago, So I talked to him, and he said they gave Booker T. Washington the same thing they gave Socrates. So I did my research, and they gave Socrates hemlock poisoning.
Wow.
And if you look at the symptoms of hemlock, what they said Booker T. Washington had, it was similar. Hemlock is a central nervous system stimulant. And in the newspaper articles, it said that Booker T. Washington was extremely nervous. The symptoms that he was displaying, rapid aging, those are not symptoms of blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the University of Maryland revisited Booker T. Washington's death, and they concluded that he died of high blood pressure. But the thing that bothered me was that I have the records that they had. I had one of Booker T. Washington's family members sent me the records so I can review them. They only had records from November the 1st, November the 2nd, and they said he was discharged on November the 3rd. Now, if you were admitted to a hospital November the 1st through the 11th, you cannot conclude why this man died if you don't have all the records. You only had 2 blood pressure readings, and that's all you had. Racial characteristics was not mentioned in these hospital records. Racial characteristics was only mentioned in the New York Tribune newspaper because it said racial characteristics, I think, is a part of his breakdown because blacks are known to be worried under the strain of work. That's what it said.
Okay.
And it said he's aging rapidly, and he is in no shape to go back to Tuskegee. Now, the New York Times said he's in the hospital, but it's not serious. You got 2 different reports, totally different reports, from 2 different major newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my point is that something happened to Booker T. Washington, but I want to say on the plus side for the University of Maryland, they said that Booker T. Washington, they cannot understand what caused such malignant hypertension. Because although hypertension is related, to black people, they said that Booker T. Washington's father was a white man and his mother was a black lady.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't understand why he got this malignant hypertension, and he had no risk factors. So I took it upon myself because when I was talking to the pastor, one pastor said it was done by some powerful white people.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out who. I mean that could be anybody. I mean, I don't know what is your definition of powerful or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it upon myself to contact some people that lived in New York, namely a lady named Mother Theora. She was familiar with the fact that Booker T. Washington was assassinated, and she was about 97 years old, and she said she has been trying for years to let people know that Booker T. Washington was assassinated, but she couldn't get no one to listen at her, and they said that I just had circumstantial evidence. So I took it upon myself to ask people, that knew Mother Theora, and what I was told by some people in New York, they said the conspiracy is composed of people that I've never heard of before. They named Skull and Bones. I never heard of them before because I thought that was something from anatomy and physiology. Mm-hmm. And a black version of them called a Boule. I'd never heard of them before. Mm-hmm. And they said also it was NAACP, the Urban League, and Woodrow Wilson's Secret Service. Mm-hmm. Those were people. It was a wide conspiracy, and they were composed of those groups. And through my research, I was able to identify what I wanted to do. I wanted to show that maybe this was a myth. Maybe it wasn't real. So, but I had to rule out some things. So, you don't want to believe anybody could do this,
right.
because Reverend Holly, he was the pastor who had first told me about it. He said he was killed because of his views. So I wanted to find out if Booker T. Washington was in the presence of somebody named Skull and Bones or a group of people. I didn't know about this. So I ordered a book by Anthony Sutton called America's Secret Society. And in the back of his book, I read the book and found that this group controls America. They are very powerful. And I want to find out if by chance Booker T. Washington was in their turf or anywhere around them. And I found out by looking at the names. I researched the names in the back of this man's book. I found that Booker T. Washington was in Connecticut. That's their hometown. That's where they live, in Connecticut. He made his last speech at Woolsey Hall, which is on their premises. He was last seen speaking to President Taft, which is one of the head members of this group. Booker T. Washington was admitted to the hospital at Rockefeller Hospital. The head of the hospital was William Welch. He was one of them. Then they said they took him home on a train to save his life. They told him he had 2 hours to live, and he said, I need to start home at once. So they got a special train to take him home. And I was wondering who could authorize a train, But I looked at the board of directors, at the people where the trains are, and they were there. They were everywhere. And I can pinpoint that they were, with Booker T. Washington around the time that he was sick. They were, I pulled different boards. I pulled the Tuskegee Board of Trustees. They were there. I pulled Hampton's Board of Trustees. They were there. And I pulled other colleges. They were on everybody's boards. And the way they operate, see, you won't know it's them, but if you, because they don't advertise that it's us. And when I looked at the Rockefeller Hospital records, they were studying syphilis while Booker T. Washington was there. So my conclusion is that if Booker T. Washington was alive, the Tuskegee Syphilis experiment would not have occurred. That's my view.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. I mean, there's a lot of things to digest for a lot of people, because people are like, for example, for me, I'm so used to hearing about Booker T. Washington dying. I was thinking that he might have died of natural causes simply for the fact of that era. Where medicine wasn't as great as it is now, supposedly. And he just never really thought about that, because it was never pushed that he might have died, of anything else. But I'm going to play something that, I guess the reason why we got in touch with each other, because Brother Dick Gregory, he was a regular guest on my show. He said something about Booker T. Washington's death one of the last times he was on the show. I want to play that right quick for people and get your,
Booker T. Washington. Of Tuskegee. And Booker T. Washington, he come to New York and date white women, and then talk that race talk when he got back. And he talked about Negroes just need to be teach service. We built everything, boy. It's service, okay? And we have to behave so the white folks will fund our institutions. And so he was invited to upstate New York. You can pull this up. For some right-wing white folk that loved him, he thought. And so they invited him to upstate New York to talk, and you couldn't stay in hotels then, so this one white man had invited him, let him stay at his house. That night at 3 o'clock in the morning, they said they called Booker T. Washington. Let me tell you something, man. The New York Times would write front-page editorials about how Booker T. Washington would come to New York and flaunt his white women. They do that on the front page, man.
Okay.
Not the editorial page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the white dude that he was there speaking for said at 3 o'clock in the morning, he caught him peeping through the keyhole looking at his wife. And he beat him so bad he died 2 weeks later when he got back to Tuskegee, and everybody kept that quiet.
Oh, that was the reason why he died.
That was the reason why he died.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Booker T. Washington.
All right, I'm going to get your response. I know there's a lot of stuff, Brother Dick Gregory, talking about how Booker T. Washington died. And I know I talked to him recently. He said that, you know, he realized that the incident happened in 1911. And he told me that the incident was recorded in the New York Times. And I found a New York Times article online yesterday. And it talks about basically it was not just a beat. I mean, he almost died, literally. A guy named Mike Urick, I believe his name is. He was a carpenter. He chased Booker T. Washington out the apartment building. It was all-white apartment building, chasing the Central Park West. And he was surrounded by a crowd of white people that were beating him almost near. It was almost a near lynching, from what I get from the article. And the police officer broke it up. But I just want to get your take on it. What do you think about what Brother Dick Gregory said, Sister Paulette?
Well, actually, being that, you know, I did read the article and I followed the court proceedings after that article, and he was hit on the head with an umbrella, and it, you know, maybe cut his ear or something like that, and I saw an article where his head was bandaged. But many times people will put things, when people want to discredit you and you control the media, one thing about the media, you can make it say what you want it to say.
Right.
It's just like a nurse's note. If I'm in control of that ink pen, I can make that ink pen say whatever I want it to say. So Booker T. Washington, that incident happened in 1911, and Booker T. Washington died in 1915. So that's what I can say about that.
Well, you don't think it had
never did.
Okay.
Beg your pardon?
No, I was saying you don't think it had anything effect on his health, like it was a delayed response to him dying later on, like that beating. Cause it was a vicious beating. He spoke a lot of places since in that happened in 1911, like 4 years earlier, before his death. He performed a lot of different places after that. There's that one incident that did not slow him down. It was an unfortunate situation, but that did not stop him from taking care of Tuskegee. Okay, yeah, I'm just like skimming through this article. But he asked the officer at the precinct a very interesting question about whether he should press charges because of his national reputation, quote unquote. And let's see. Let's skimming through here. This is amazing. Like, I talked to a person from Tuskegee online. You know, he went to Tuskegee. He said he never heard about this incident of him being beat up in New York City back in 1911. But as a nurse, would you let somebody out of your care? I mean, as a nurse, speaking from a nurse perspective, would you let somebody out your care if his head was bandaged but it was still bleeding, like it was leaking through the gauze?
Well, actually, that happened in 1911. My research starts with his illness in 1915, so I cannot go with his health care from back then. My focus is on what happened after he left my hometown in Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah, but I'm saying as a nurse, I mean, I guess it's common sense. I would say as a healthcare practitioner, would you allow somebody to leave your hospital if their wounds were still bleeding? If it still was leaking?
I would have to, but when you see, it's easy to talk about that now, but it's a thing where you have to be there, because all we can do is go by what was written, which it all depends on a person's point of view. But I can't speak for 1911 because I don't know how I would have done back then. I don't know.
Okay, also, it's interesting you brought up the Rockefeller Hospital or Institute, where they did pioneer syphilis study. They had a guy named Dr. Hideo Noguchi from Japan.
All right.
And it's interesting because did they not get in trouble for, like, I guess, some unethical practices as it relates to the study. Can you explain to us what happened with that at the Rockefeller Institute?
Well, they were. Chardin was he's the one discovered the syphilis spirochete.
Mm-hmm.
And Chardin died, I don't know what year it was, and I noticed his experiment was picked up by, Rockefeller Institute, and William Welch said, which is, a member of that group I mentioned, he was head of the hospital, he said, it seemed the syphilis, this seemed the most exciting thing just now. And Noguchi, he did inject some people with this syphilis, but he was done with a sub-Q needle. That's a small needle. And Noguchi was sued. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's a Japanese.
It's like Roosevelt or Roosevelt. I said Noguchi, you said Noguchi, whatever. They can look it up.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, but he injected people with the syphilis germ, and they later sued him for that. It was in New York.
Right.
So he did experiment with syphilis. So it just appears to me that they wanted to do further studies on that, and it just so happened that Booker T. Washington was admitted to the hospital around this time, and I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I just want people to understand, what type of people were. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying the type of people he was injecting with this virus, they were orphans and homeless people, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
That's what this newspaper said, yes.
So, but it was an outrage. What I'm saying is, it's funny, if you look at what happened at Tuskegee with the experimentation on the black males down there, it was an outrage back in 1910 for them to do a syphilis experiment that was kind of similar to the one Tuskegee. The newspaper caught a hold of it, and they had to pay a fine. So that just show you the diabolical mindset of this system. For them to even replicate that years later at a different place, doing the same things without giving people consent, is just really horrendous. But somebody want to know, can you repeat the names of the people, I guess, involved in the boule? Or what somebody said in the chat room. Or repeat something.
No. I don't have their names in front of me, but they can Google it online.
Mm-hmm.
They can Google that, and they also can Google members of Skull and Bone.
Yeah, Skull and Bone, and that's interesting.
It's public record.
And also, we're talking about. I know we got some people that want to get in on this conversation. I'm gonna get them in as soon as possible. But when you talk about, when you start connecting the dots, like you talk about Rockefeller Institute, you talk about Tuskegee, then you talk about Johns Hopkins, Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. They all are connected by the syphilis thing, correct? The syphilis experimentation.
Well, I don't know. I did not research it from that angle.
What about the guy named Welch, the guy you brought?
I just know that he was. Yeah, I just know that at the Rockefeller Institute, those scientists. This is what my biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in my book, I mentioned the name Dr. Flexner.
Right.
And Dr. Flexner, he inquired after Booker T. Washington was discharged. He inquired and said, "I feel by all odds Moulton should be his successor."
Mm-hmm.
My wonder is, why would you be concerned about Booker T. Washington's successor? Now, Flexner pioneered where syphilis was prevalent, and he wanted to know, he was inquiring about who would be Booker T. Washington's successor. And I'm wondering, why? Why would that be of interest to you when Booker T. Washington supposedly was discharged from your hospital? Why are you interested in Booker T. Washington's campus and his successor? And I believe there was a plan in place to do something on this man's campus. Mm-hmm.
So you mean to tell me they waited? Mm-hmm. So you tell me they was willing to wait for some years in order to implement this plan, but they had a plan nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a plan. See, one thing I have found, people they don't do things, but spontaneous like that. They put everything in place because it takes money, it takes machinery, it takes equipment. It takes a lot to do that. But they always put a plan in place. They don't just do it the next day or 2 weeks from now. They put their plan in place first. Mm-hmm. It's just like like a city. Just like in my city, you can look back 15 years ago. They said we started this 12 years ago. They don't just do it just for the moment. They have a plan. They know who they're going to move out of a certain area, and they know what they're going to build in that area. So it's a good plan. It's just like 9/11. They didn't do that. That was a plan, a very executed plan, and then it didn't start the 2 weeks before.
I mean, making
we may not know about it, but yeah, people in higher ups, they do things. They know about how much money it's going to take. They know they're going to have doctors, going into it and out. They keep records of it. They don't advertise that they're doing it, but they do it. And they already put who's going to be in charge of it and what they are to do and who are they to answer to. So it's not a thing where they're doing this overnight.
Oh, wow. So people, I'm glad you put a lot of information out here. Somebody said, will you be shocked if research reveals that a black man killed Martin Luther King? So that's interesting. Would you be shocked if that was the case? Would I be shocked? Yeah.
Would I be shocked?
Yeah.
No. No. In fact, I believe they did.
Okay. He said also a very good point about planning.
I don't believe James Earl Ray did that to Martin Luther King. I don't believe that.
Well, it's interesting because I know Brother Dick Gregory, he's a pioneer in the conspiracy theory on Dr. Martin Luther King. But like you talking about earlier about hearing this from ministers, elders, and stuff about the history of Booker T. Washington being killed, and it's funny to me because you start thinking about it. Back in the day, black folks were, like the movie The Butler. He was privy to a lot of powerful information, hanging around, serving powerful whites. And people got to understand that a lot of our elders know a lot of stuff about this stuff, because especially in the service industry, you think about a lot of our elders being butlers, being Pullman porters, riding on those trains. A lot of them Pullman porters got rich by listening to the stock tips from white men, talking to each other about the stock market, about different things, about commodities. So, I mean, we always had a people that was privy to information. It's like, to me, if you could go to corporate America, one of the most powerful people in corporate America are the janitors, because they the ones that, take care of the garbage, the trash, the information. You look at the hospitals, like, you a nurse, y'all the most powerful people at the hospital. Y'all know more about what's going on with the politics and dynamics of the hospital than the doctor. So, I mean, you look at the people, like our people have been in the service industry for a long time serving these white powerful people. So it don't surprise me that you was able to find some information that is not printed in the quote-unquote history books pertaining to the death of Booker T. Washington.
Right.
But
it's not. I had to go to. It's not in just one place. What you have to do, you have to cross-reference. You have to look at the Booker T. Washington papers. You have to look at letters from the Times. You have to go to different libraries. You have to look at the dialogue, who was saying what at what time. Just like one of his trustees said, I have felt. Now this is right. Booker T. Washington died on a Monday morning. Mm-hmm. On Monday afternoon, this guy is saying, well, I have felt all along that Moulton should be his successor.
Right.
I mean, listen at what they're saying. How could you feel all along that Moulton should be his successor when you just learned a few hours ago that he was dead? And I think because they use it so loosely, they didn't. I don't think they realized what they were saying. That somebody's going to come back and evaluate their conversation.
Right.
There's no way you could possibly feel that Moulton should be. I have felt all along. I mean, how long have you been feeling that about a person who was not preparing to die? That's because you knew this man was going to die. You knew that.
And Moulton came from, I'm sorry.
Beg your pardon?
Yeah, Moulton is from Hampton Institute, right? Was he the head of Hampton Institute at the time?
Yes, he was from Hampton Institute.
Okay.
And he was Booker T. Washington's successor.
So people thought that his secretary, his personal secretary, Emmett Scott, would be the proper successor, correct? Was that the rumor going around, or people saying Emmett Scott was going to lead? Okay.
Yes, they felt, the morning when he died, Mr. Allen, who's from my hometown, who's an undertaker, he put in the New York Times, but he didn't put it in Mobile newspaper. He put it in the New York Times that Emmett Scott he said, I am in close contact with the affairs at Tuskegee, and Emmett Scott will be his successor.
Wow.
I don't know how could he possibly have, because this is supposed to be a shock to America that Booker T. Washington died. But yet, William Wilcox, who was on his board of trustees, he is saying Mrs. Washington felt Moulton should be his successor. I did not read anything where Miss Washington said these things. Wilcox is saying these people are saying these things. He said this other Dr. William, I can't think of his name, but anyway, he was saying two people that were coming to the funeral, they also feel Moulton should be his successor. But they didn't, he said they said it. But you didn't hear these people actually verbalizing anything. So it just seems like William Wilcox was the spokesperson for everybody. And in the end, it took a committee. They got a committee. And they say the committee chose Moulton.
Interesting. Wow. So that's interesting. So it's politics as usual, it sounds like. I'm going to hit the phone line. People been wanting to ask you some questions. And somebody in the chat room once again said, that you are a real person and they're going to buy your book. They're planning to get the book.
Am I a real person?
No, it says she is a real person.
Yes, I'm real.
Yeah. I guess it's like, you sincere, like you actually authentic, real, I guess. You are a person, of course.
I'm real because I want to tell people I'm not running for office or trying to achieve some type of special honor. I'm just a hard-working young lady just like everybody else in America.
That's right. That's so true.
I eat eggs every morning just like everybody else.
That sounds like
But I don't know about you know what? I went to Boston and I ordered some grits, and they thought I was crazy. They said, grits? They say they don't eat grits in Boston.
They clam chowder. Interesting.
Yes, they say we eat cream of wheat.
Yeah, interesting. Boston, old Beantown. Actually, like, Booker T. Washington is, I guess, one of his greatest nemesis from Beantown, William Monroe Trotter.
Oh, yes. Yeah, William Monroe Trotter, I admire him because although I didn't agree with him, I admired him for standing up for what he believed in. He felt Booker T. Washington was wrong, but that was his opinion. And he has a right, to his opinion.
He definitely does.
So he spent the rest of his life fighting it,
I want to give people a little bit of background on William Monroe Trotter. He was a brilliant journalist. He was the first black Psi Beta Kappa at Harvard University. His father was a proud black man who served as a sergeant in the Union Army during the Civil War. He grew up in a very affluent neighborhood, white people, Hyde Park up in Boston. And he was a guy who definitely disagreed with Booker T. Washington. And also what I love about William Monroe Trotter, what people don't understand, like I know several years ago when the Hurricane Katrina fiasco happened, and people were criticizing, or they were like, wow, Kanye West said that George Bush doesn't care about black people. William Monroe Trotter actually went to the White House and had a stare down with Woodrow Wilson in the White House for a number of minutes, and saying he was a fraud. You know, you betrayed the black folks. The black folks thought you was Lincoln, nothing but a con. He basically he told this to the President of the United States. This is back in the 1910s. And he was banned from the White House. This is William Monroe Trotter. Okay.
And the President told him, you offends me. And
right.
He made him leave. But he he expressed himself. He stood up to be a man, and he like a man, and he expressed what was on his mind. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's not like you wrote him a letter. He did it face to face with him
in the White House, right? That's William Monroe Trotter, the founder of the Boston Guardian. So we're gonna hit the phone lines right quick, get these people that have been patiently waiting to chime in. Feel free once again, family, to call in. Area code 646-652-4593. Area code 646-652-4593. Now we're gonna hit up. I guess it's Mobile 251. You're on the air. We're gonna w.e.b.
Hi, my name's Essie Harris.
Hey, Ms. Harris, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you on.
Thank you. Hi, Ms. Paulette.
How are you?
I'm good. In reading your book and going back to the movement when Booker T. Washington was up north, and he was with W.E.B. Du Bois and William Monroe Trotter. Okay, during that time, they wanted him just kind of like not to be there, period, because he somewhat agreed with, just read the book, he really agreed with like interracial marriages and stuff and things like that. And they called it would gradually bleach the dark race, right? So you got his name is Joel Bingham.
He was the one involved with the NAACP.
So, yes, but he was a white board member of with the NAACP in 1914, and then he later became the president. Well, with all this going on, and just reading it really opens your eyes to realize that this is a black group that we look up to. We always have looked up to the NAACP, but it was headed by a white man during that time.
Right.
So with him being there, and you got the assassination of Booker T. Washington, and I understand your perspective clearly because I'm a registered nurse as well, on how you cannot just have vital signs for 2 days and then you leave the hospital. Most races do have, like, certain diseases that you say that's like racial characteristics. Well, what he was exhibiting was high blood pressure, okay. That's really assigned to the black race. But then when you have malignant hypertension, you don't get discharged from the hospital. And then we're talking about in the early 1900s too. So things are totally different then. So his treatment was probably totally different. But I guess my point is, looking at Joel Stinger, he had the United States Army back him. And then listening to, just reading your book about him being on the ivory tower, they wanted him to be knocked off the ivory tower. So do you think that W.E.B. Du Bois and William Monroe Trotter, to me, and I'm just saying this, and may offend some people, especially as it concerns W.E.B. Du Bois, seem like they were puppets.
Exactly.
It seemed like they were puppets. They were not in control of what you would call a black group of people trying to keep some dignity, to maintain some things with the black community. To me, just reading your book, and this book is very deep, and it brings things, and everything in here you can actually look up on the internet, so it's not something that's just made up. Because I know you didn't, because I'm a check the facts myself too. But just reading this, and then you got the Boule, the black fraternities. You got Sigma Psi. You got Phi Beta Kappa and all these Greek fraternities and stuff like that. And we know how they were founded. But then when you look back and read your book on how some of these things were found it as it concerns or as it relates to the skull and bones and the boule and all these different things, it makes you wonder. Right. It's like an eye-opener.
Well, thank you, Sister, for that. We appreciate that.
So I just wanted to...
hello.
Great job. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you got cut off. Go ahead.
I was just commending her for doing a great job. There are things that people know and have known that has never been brought out to light. There are things that we, as Black people, we participate in, and we get the shiny, the good side of how it was founded. But if you look at this, and this is not her just making these things up, because, of course, I got a computer, too. I go to the library as well. And if you can put 2 and 2 together, then you'll see that some of these things were not just founded on a Black person's idea. It was also like it was given a go-ahead by someone Caucasian or white to do it because it was going to help them do what they needed to do to help outsource, get rid of, control a group of people as well.
Well, thank you, Sister, for that comment.
Great job, Ms. Paulette.
And so we would like to respond to that.
You know, I'm glad you. I'm glad to talk to nurses because I did go to several nurses because it bothered me because I could not make it make sense. Mm-hmm. And I say it makes no sense for a person to say you got 2 hours to live and you get up and you walk through New York City. That's just not possible. And I told other nurses, I say, please read this and make it make sense. And many nurses told me the reason it's not making sense to you is because they're telling a lie. Mm-hmm. You can't make the truth out of a lie. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was told by medical, professionals, because I didn't want to rely on my own understanding. I wanted other people to look at it. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that was a nurse that read it and she could see it from, my point of view.
No, definitely. I'm glad she called in as well. And we got another call, I think, from North Carolina, 919. You're on the air. What can we all be? 919?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, man.
Yes, sir. My name is Frank Lawrence, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. And Sister Horton will tell you, after reading some of the reviews of your book, it really encouraged me to make certain that I got on the call to listen to the research and some of the work that you've done regarding Booker T. Washington's death. But I have 2 questions. The first question deals with some of the factors medically and physiologically that deal with people either having high blood pressure or contracting high blood pressure, and, of course, the other consideration within the healthcare side of it being syphilis. And then the other side of the table, which you've talked a little bit about, dealing with the conspiracy, and not a theory, but the conspiracy based on what you believe to be the collective efforts of certain groups of individuals that would benefit from the death of Brother Washington. Now, on the health side, Sister Horton, we know that, and please understand, I'm not trying to challenge you or the other nurses' statements regarding high blood pressure being kind of an exclusive Black person's disease. Everybody has high blood pressure or the potential for acquiring it. Of course, smoking, high cholesterol, salt, and then there's a genetic predisposition, and, of course, stress, alcohol, and fat consumption. Now, I'm just kind of wondering, because if these factors potentially were a part of Dr. Washington's lifestyle and makeup, and they were not presented in his medical records, because from what I've looked at as far as your research, which coincides with some of the research from Dr. Alex Dominguez, one of the physicians who was responsible for looking at his medical records during the University of Maryland Medical Conference. Mm-hmm. It appears that there was not one single determination, but there were a lot of possibilities because, really effective treatment for high blood pressure didn't really take place until 1950, but in 1911 or any time prior to Dr. Washington's death, would you concede that he could have very well had a secondary kidney damaged condition to the high blood pressure, which may really constitute a valid reason for his death. Now, on the other side of the coin, and I'm going to finalize it here, if that is not a consideration which has a lot of weight, high cholesterol, smoking, salt, was he an alcohol user or an abuser, high blood pressure, a fat consumer, did he eat a lot of swine flesh, then can you conclusively say that there was a conspiracy put together by a group of individuals? Was it the Skull and Bones, the Boulay, or the Knights of Columbus, or whoever would have benefited for his death? Because I'm going to buy your book, but what I want to know in advance is, am I going to be entertained by looking at your argument based on the fact that it's not an either or, and it is a could have been? Because it sounds like you don't have a lot of faith in the medical side as far as that being an issue. And it sounds like more that you're leaning toward the conspiracy. And I'd just like you to kind of comment a little bit on which side you give the most weight to. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay. This was my only concern with when they revisited his death. When you're going to conclude, when you're going to make a conclusion, why not have, they said Booker T. Washington was in Rockefeller Hospital.
Right.
I have documents that he was there. My only thing was that they said he left Rockefeller Hospital and was transferred to St. Luke Hospital. Now, that means that in order to get a careful conclusion about what happened to him, you would have to have all of his records. You need his discharge summary. You just can't take November the 1st and November the 2nd and form a conclusion. So what I'm saying is a very good job was done as far as looking at the records from what they had, but it would have been better if you had all the hospital records, including his discharge summary, to see what condition he was in when he left the hospital on his way back to Tuskegee. That was my only thing. They did not have all the documentation. And I believe when the Haitian said, the deed is done, I loaded it, I believe based on the symptoms of hemlock poisoning, it raised his pressure, and that is what caused his hospitalization in Rockefeller Hospital.
It's
not that they just didn't have enough documentation to me.
Okay, because a lot of people say all this stuff is circumstantial. I remember when I listened to you talk about Booker T. Washington's demise. I'm recalling what I heard when I remember seeing a video of Paul Robeson Jr., the great Paul Robeson's son, talk about how he felt that his father was poisoned by the CIA while he was in Moscow. That gave him some type of LSD drug, which caused him to try to commit suicide. He was not in his right mind. Now he said it's circumstantial, but he feel like like you said, if it don't feel right to you when you look at something that is not truthful. And black people, we got this certain sense about ourselves when we know that something just ain't right with a lot of things that we are given. Like a lot of people call certain people paranoid, but it's good to have a healthy sense of paranoia when you're dealing in the system of white supremacy. If you look at the medical profession, a lot of people have good reasons as far as black folks not to trust the medical profession. Look at the Tuskegee experiment. Look at the father of so-called gynecology, J. Marion Sims, how he treated black female women and slaves. I mean, he was basically mutilating their vaginas. He's not getting any type of anesthesia, was mutilating their bodies. They could take it, they're so strong, they can be mutilating their bodies with these crude instruments. You think about what happened at Johns Hopkins back in the 50s, early 50s with Henrietta Lacks. I mean, they took her DNA while she was dying from ovarian cancer without her consent. And the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry has made billions upon billions of dollars off of this black woman's DNA without her consent. Meanwhile, while her family is suffering, a lot of them destitute, can't even afford health insurance. So black folks got a reason why we should not trust the medical establishment, quote unquote, as a people. So I just want you to take the floor and offer your thoughts.
Well, actually, you know, the gentleman that, you know, the last gentleman I talked to, I have a lot of confidence in the medical field, and everyone that I've worked with, they always do the best job that they can do, and it has been my goal to be the best job that I can do. But my only thing, when I see something, because nursing school kicked my butt, I'm gonna tell you, I studied daily, and you could ask any nurse. It takes a lot to put those care plans together, and you get graded on that. So when you see something, and it's just not right, it jumps off the page at you, and you have to say, wait a minute, something is not right.
Right.
So as far as the University of Maryland, I'm pretty sure that, you know, they were doing the best they could with what they had. But my thing is they didn't have it all to come up with a conclusion. You need all the records, because discharge starts from the day you enter the hospital until you discharge. They say he was like this when he came, and now he's like that. I want to see that decline, but we don't have that, because St. Luke says we don't have records that he was ever in our hospital. But yet Rockefeller said he was transferred. Well, the documentation leads you to believe that he was transferred to St. Luke's hospital, but you got a urinary output on the 11th on Rockefeller stationary. If he was in the hospital on the 11th, it would be on St. Luke's stationary. So all indications would show that he never left out of Rockefeller Hospital. Because if your urine is there and your bowel movement is there, you're there. And that was my findings.
So we also got some more calls. People are really calling in. They want to talk to you about this. We'll go to area code 707. Y'all on the air? 70.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
The Reverend Denise Johnson. Is this you, Reverend Denise? Is this Reverend Denise Johnson? Oh, yes. How you doing? Happy, I guess, belated birthday. I know you celebrated your birthday recently. How you doing today?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm 61, and I'm doing fine.
That's all good. That sounds good.
I wanted to commend the sister for writing this book, for being brave enough to tell the truth, because that's what is lacking in black history, the truth. I know that you're telling the truth about what happened to Booker T, because of the simple fact my son was murdered in a fraternity in 1988. I still have no complete.
2008. 2008.
In 2008, yes, in 2008. He was murdered in the Sigma Chi fraternity house in San Jose State University, where they are killing black students right now today. Okay? The Brendan Tiggs was killed in November of 2014. They claimed they found him hanging on his knees, and they called it a suicide. His family cannot get records. It's 6 months later. His family cannot get records. And I've been told this by his father. I know this for sure. Okay? They did it to Booker T. You cannot trust the system, and it is killing our young people. Was doing it then, and they're doing it now. And I just want to commend the sister for telling the truth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Johnson. And that's a good point to make, because her son, Gregory Johnson Jr., was killed. He was a member of Sigma Chi. That's one of the most powerful, fraternities in North America. It's on the, same level, I guess, as a Skull and Bones and stuff like that. So this is very serious stuff, and people need to look that up. Gregory Johnson Jr., which is available. I mean, just search it online. It's online. So we got another caller, area code 470. Y'all on the air. Welcome to w.e.b. 470. I guess they.
Hey, you hear me right? How y'all doing?
Hey, how you doing, man? What's your name?
How are you?
Hey, my name is Wes, man. I'm calling from Atlanta. But look here, you said Senior Booker T. Washington had a wife and he had children, and I was just wondering, could his heirs or somebody have his body exhumed? Because now we got technology, forensic technology now, where they can exhume his body and do a chemical analysis to see exactly what killed him. So I think it would be good if maybe somebody could exhume his body and dig it up and see what his heirs say, if any of them are around or whatever. Or maybe University can do it.
Well, he has relatives. He has relatives. In fact, I'm very close to his great-grandson, and his great-grandson told me, he said he always felt that his great-grandfather was bumped off because he was told, he said, well, what did he die of? And the older people said Booker T. Washington died because he worked himself to death. And he said he worked himself to death. And he's just trying to figure out as a child, how can you work yourself to death? You know, but that's what the older people felt, that he died, you know, working himself to death. But as far as them exhuming Booker T. Washington's body, I'm going to tell you what you're going to find. You're not going to find anything because these people are able to cover their tracks. They will do any kind of trickery where they won't get caught. So you're not going to find anything out of the ordinary, you know, because we won't see what they can do, because they can do any kind of trickery to lead you to believe that he died a natural death.
Let me ask you this.
So it'll be a waste of time.
Well, Sister Paulette, do you believe that he's actually buried at Tuskegee?
I went to his grave once,
mm-hmm.
and I got on my knees. I felt a certain emptiness there, and I couldn't describe it. And I talked to his great-grandson before I even expressed those feelings, you know, to him. And he said, you know, I used to be on, you know, he attended Tuskegee. And he said, you know, sometimes I used to go in the cemetery, and I felt like they were not there. And he said, I'm very spiritual. I did not feel Booker T. Washington was there. And he said he walked around George Washington's Carver's grave. He said, I felt that same emptiness around his grave. He said, I just felt like they were not there. And, you know, I just felt a certain emptiness. I don't know where it came from, but I really don't know. But I know one thing, it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, also, I mean, it will be interesting to know, and it will be interesting to see if the family will be okay with doing that, because I just think it's, when I think about the skull and bones, you know, they got this thing. I mean, now we know a lot about the skull and bones that we didn't know, thanks in part, like, you know, we know a lot about the boule that we didn't know because of the late, great Steve Coakley, the phenomenal researcher from Chicago who passed away a couple of years ago, really told Black America about the boule and about these secret societies. But my understanding with the skull and bones is that they have this, there's a rumor that they keep the skulls of certain type of famous people. Like there's been rumored to believe that they have the skulls of Geronimo, the famous Native American freedom fighter, and the skull of Pancho Villa, the famous Mexican freedom fighter. Because when they found Pancho Villa's body down in Mexico, his head was missing. And do you believe there's a possibility that they could have the head or the skull of Booker T. Washington at their location, the Skull and Bones, in Connecticut?
Well, you know, I look at it like this: when you got money, and when you do mischief,
mm-hmm.
and nobody questions you or nobody watches you, and you have the money to get away with it, I think anything is possible.
And
because you have the technology to do it. You have access to do it. And as I was looking at Booker T. Washington's grave, the 1950 shots of it, and I was looking at why would he have those two caskets? Why is his flower arrangements in the shape of a pyramid? You know, it just seems so odd to me.
Yeah, you showed me the picture. The picture of the floral arrangement with the pyramid-shaped floral arrangement with the cross on top of his grave. Have you ever figured out what that was about? Has anybody ever told you who does that type of stuff?
No. I talked to several people, and they say it looks scary looking.
It looks kind of weird.
I know. I don't know why they decided to put all of his flowers in the shape of this pyramid with the sign of the cross in between. I don't know. But all I know, it did exist, and I have the pictures there to show it. But I just feel that, I don't want people to look at my writings. I want you to go back, and you could Google most of it. You can go to the Library of Congress. You can go to the University of Chicago. You can go to the Library of Congress, just like I did, and you can research it too and come up with your conclusion. That's why I put on my book a nurse's view. I'm just one nurse, and those are my views of my findings. They may go and look and find something totally different, but until someone tells me otherwise, I will believe what the pastors told me, that Booker T. Washington was assassinated. They had no reason to lie about it.
Let me ask you this, I know you sent me some pictures of you and Brother Buck, sent me some pictures of his casket. Now, I want to ask you this, because I was looking at the pictures, and my thing was, they look different, but one photo is lighter than the other. One's darker and one's lighter. And I was trying to look at it, so can you tell me a little bit about the casket situation at his funeral?
Okay. If you look at the very first casket, the one without the guard standing on it, you will look at the side of it, and you will notice that it's got a whole bunch of designer buttons on it.
Okay.
And if you look at the trunks that's under the casket, those trunks, move the casket back and forward, the trunks are different from the second picture. And I took it to a funeral director, and he took out his magnifying glass, and then he explained to me that first casket, he said that's a very expensive casket for that day and time. And he says the second casket is not as expensive as that first one. He said, and the trunks under it are different. And if you notice, the same floral design is on each casket. It's as though they rolled one out, took the floral arrangement out, rolled another casket in, and then put that same floral design on top. And I don't know why that was necessary to do that. But that second, the plain casket, is the one that went into the ground based on another angle that I saw at the cemetery site.
So do you know what happened to the other casket, the more expensive one? Does anybody know the whereabouts of that casket?
That's the $1 million question. That's the $1 million question. What happened to the first casket?
And also, you were
I
talking...
got a picture of the hearse.
Yeah,
I got a picture of the hearse.
You got a picture of the hearse, okay.
I got a picture of the hearse. There's one hearse.
So a lot of this stuff, people don't understand that
what happened.
This is new ground, because you won't find too many things about Booker T. Washington murder on the internet. This is basically new information that's coming out now.
It's a secret. His assassination was a secret. No one was supposed to know about it. But it's just that when his death was decided to be revisited, and they revisited, I just disagreed with their findings. And I wanted to compare their findings with what was told to me, so the reader can decide, get their own opinion of it.
Now, somebody posed, a couple people are really just going back and forth in the chat room about this topic. One person brought up a very interesting question. Many people think that Tuskegee got its money from white donors. Some say Booker T took his speaking honorarium and supported Tuskegee. What are your thoughts?
They are exactly right. What happened was General Armstrong at Hampton, he saw the progress that Booker T. Washington was making, and General Armstrong told Booker T. Washington, it is time for you to get money to help this institution to grow. and they gave him a letter of introduction. So Booker T. Washington got on the road, and he begged for money. And when it got to the point where white philanthropists learned that Booker T. Washington was doing a great deed, they pumped money by the millions into Tuskegee Institute. So that is correct. It was from the Baldwins of the railroad, Carnegie, however you want to call it, Rosenwald, a lot of rich people. They donated money to help that school to grow, and that is exactly right. They offered Booker T. Washington a certain amount of money to be a teacher somewhere. He says, no, if you're going to give me anything, I want it to go to Tuskegee Institute. He sacrificed his life so that the black people could grow, and he provided Tuskegee to help people. So he did get a lot of support from the northern white people. That is true.
And also make a further point. You said Andrew Carnegie or Carnegie. It don't make a difference. It's like Roosevelt. This really doesn't make a difference to me. But he was a very wealthy white man. He actually gave Booker T. Washington personally over $500,000 for him. But instead of him just taking it outright, he put it in a bank and he lived off the interest. Correct?
That's true.
So that's a lot of money back then.
He said, he wanted because it took a lot because he was allowing students from everywhere that wanted to come to his school, but they couldn't afford it. But he got it where they could work, like a work study type thing. He didn't turn nobody down that wanted to attend his school.
Oh, wow. So another caller. You got a lot of people calling in there, chiming in. Got some more comments to read out the chat room. Got area code 662. Y'all on the air. Welcome to w.e.b. Turn down your how you doing? Turn down your computer for me. Get some feedback.
Okay.
Hey, so how you doing? Who is this?
Brother Ron, it's Brother Green.
Hey, Brother Green, how you doing, man? Hey, Brother Green, how you doing? You called me. You just got off of work, man. You was working from 3 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock. Wow. Under the hell, how you doing today, man?
Yeah, man. I was just trying to catch bits and pieces of from just what, little hours here, and, it's, and the question I guess I was going to ask you basically touched on it, trying to find answers about, what's about this mystery and why this man was wanting to be silent so much. As we talk, knowledge is a powerful thing. It's something that you can't take from somebody.
Yes, sir.
And, once you learn it. And, to me, just like the caskets and stuff, the funeral home or the funeral directors, couldn't nobody give answers like the lady was talking about. You searching, you pulling your own opinion. You're not really finding no answers nowhere. So, this guy right here, thank God it was a black man. Just putting it in that respect right there. Somebody we got to look up to. The great works. We can say, hey, this guy did this and this guy did that. And, the white people even, caught on to it like you talking about the Carnegies and, all these rich people. They knew it was something good. So, it's just a mystery.
Right, it is. And they knew it was something good, and they were willing to donate their money. Presidents like President McKinley, Roosevelt, all of them visited the campus. And they bragged about how well they said Tuskegee has grown to be big as Yale. The school was just phenomenal, and it was only because this one man, he rolled up his sleeve because he was there. It was just an abandoned church, and now it's like he put this city on the map.
It's something that they wanted out of it.
Right. Everybody will be a part of success.
They wanted out of it.
Well, they say success has many fathers, and failure has none, right? Success has many fathers, and failure has none. So everybody won't be a part of success.
Well, just, from hearing you all talking, some of the decisions he made, like that $500,000, where you put in the bank, he could have took it, say, hey, forget everybody else, but he didn't do that. He didn't put self first, he put others first.
He did.
And I think that's a quality, some of us missing in I have to say, in our race. I got to get mine. That's all we hear now. We forgot what happened somebody along the way because, I can remember as far as myself, somebody helped me along the way. Stuff like that, me just being my own person, I can't forget that. I can't forget that. I may not have monetary values to give you, but I can give you something in return, anything I can do to help you. But that was, I just wanted to throw it out there. Like you said, I just got out work and, trying to catch part of it. And, I'm going to have to go back into the archives and catch up on a couple of these shows there, brother.
No problem.
When I got some time to just sit down and relax. But
I don't know. Some of these shows might make you angry, Brother Sean. They might make you angry. I don't know about it might raise your blood pressure. But now I want to thank you for calling in, man. I know, you went into work early today, and for you to call in. There's so many people who are on the line right now that's listening to the show because they never heard about this. They never thought about this could be something more to Booker T. Washington dying. And I think what people looking at right now, they're thinking about what have we really lost by him dying the way he died. Has Black America missed out on something?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We take it as, well, there's another black man that did this and did that. He's gone on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know he planted a seed somewhere down the line where somebody got to pick that up and run with it. Instead of running the other way, we got to run forward like this man did.
Mm.
It's easy to make the wrong choice, but it's hard to make the right choice.
That's so true.
That's what we got to get down to.
Well, brother, man,
I just wanted to say, man, I'm glad I met you, about a year or so ago. The work you and your mom do. I take my hat off to you, man. I try to spread the word, especially the thing your mom got going on, helping our black kids trying to maneuver through this financial aid and get into these colleges. And I take my hat off to you.
Well, Brother Son, we love you, madly, and thank you once again for calling in and supporting W.e.b.
Well, man, I appreciate you all, and y'all take care.
You too. Thank you. Well, Sister Paulette, you have anything you want to add, like any comments or any thoughts?
Well, actually, I would like people to do their own research and look at all the books. And I looked at a book called, and they could write this down, In Search of Nilla Larson. And in this book, at the time Booker T. Washington died, it said it was a great, I forgot the word they used, conspiracy or something like that. It was something that happened on Tuskegee campus around the time that Booker T. Washington died. And that's when Warren Logan, who was the principal of the school, his wife jumped to her death. It's too much suicide was going on, and I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, it's like it's a body count. It's interesting looking at the president of the United States. Like the conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So many presidents, if you look at how they rose to power, it's like got a long line of dead people on a list, like a long list of dead people. And you look at Booker T. Washington, was interesting. You talk about Warren Logan's wife allegedly committed suicide on the same day of his memorial service. I think it was December 12th. Because he had the original one. The funeral was in November.
Yeah.
But the memorial service for the school was December. But the thing about it is, like, you look at Booker T. Washington, he was married 3 times, but his first 2 wives died real young. So what do you think about that as a nurse?
Well, I really can't, because I don't have their medical records. It's just that the first wife died and left him with an arm baby. Then the second wife died. The second wife, he had 2 sons, And then he had, this daughter, so that's 3 children. Then she died, and then he married another lady, and she died in like 1925, which is maybe 10 years after his death. So I really have not, researched, their death per se. So I really, as a nursing, I can't say because I have not researched it. I only researched his death.
But you can think about, like, even, like, when he died, like you talked about one of his board of trustees, people, Sept, he died 8 months later of indigestion or something like that.
Right.
And then you look at other people like
indigestion. I'm going. Now he's the one that said, I feel that by all odds, he said I felt all along that Moten should be his successor. He's the one. Then he died like 8 months later, and then Spingarm had all the blacks to meet at his house, in August of the next year, and that's when they had that Armenia conference. That's a historic Negro gathering.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
But Spingarm said Booker T. Washington was not fit to be a leader.
Well, you know what? You said that. I was thinking about that. Booker T. Washington was selected by white folks. And it's like white folks, decided to take him out. It's kind of like what happened last week. I'm looking like Al Sharpton. They came out that he was an informant for the FBI. And look at now, he got a direct line to the White House. But at what cost? You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as they select you to do something, they say they could get rid of you at any time once they get through with you. They could discard you at any time because they whatever they give, they could take away. It's like a God complex. So you're saying that the NAACP was definitely involved in this thing with Booker T. Washington. You're saying that they were hands-on, the leadership, correct?
When I talked to I talked to some people that were associated with the NAACP, and I explained what I felt, and I was told, they said, but we've gone through and we done cleaned up everything from a long time ago. We done cleaned up all the corruption, and I said, until you apologize for what has been done to Booker T. Washington, you have not cleaned up much. I want them to see their role into, what happened to this man. And for your listeners, I would like them to really read Booker T. Washington's books, Character Building, The Future of the American Negro, Mastermind of a Child of Slavery. You can really learn something from his books. His ideas are as fresh as it was now as it was then. And you could find his book. You won't find many of them on the library shelf, but I want you to encourage them, please read Up from Slavery and have your children to read it because you can really be inspired. And for your listeners, too, I want them to just understand what Booker T. Washington was all about and look at what he could do and see how can you learn from what he did. How can you learn today from what he did years ago?
Yeah, Booker T. Washington is such a fascinating man and also the subject matter to deal with. And it's impressive what he was able to come up, and able to do and provide for the people before he passed. But I also say, there's this thing with when we think about Booker T. Washington, a lot of us think about him, or we used to think about him as being some type of Uncle Tom, and that was it. Like he was a white man's nigga, quote unquote. He was picked by the white man to be the leadership. Because even I played early the Atlanta Exposition speech he did back in 1895, which is famously known as the Atlanta Compromise, but it was the name. He says, cash your buckets where you are. And according to the historian, the great Dr. John Henry Clark, a lot of black folks were upset with Booker T. Washington when he said at that exposition. But it made him a star to be noted with. But also, people would say that he was the founder of Tuskegee, but in actuality, was it not the Alabama State Legislature that put up the money, and they told him, they recruited him to come down to Tuskegee? Is that more accurate than saying that he was the founder of Tuskegee?
He was. Tuskegee was already there. In fact, it was a black man, Mr. Adams, I think, that he was a well-known person at Tuskegee. But they told him to come down because they wanted a white man. And General Armstrong said, well, we don't have a white man, but we have a very capable, black man named Booker T. Washington, and he said, well, we'll send him, But when Booker T. Washington got to Tuskegee, there was just no school. He had to start from scratch, and so did George Washington Carver. He had to start from scratch. But it was only after people saw what he was trying to do that people, jumped on the bandwagon to try to help him. Like one lady, she says, I admire what you're trying to do, but I don't have anything but 6 eggs. Oh. And she said, I'm going to give you these 6 eggs, and I hope that can help out a little bit. So a lot of people, but it's just that when he started going to the north, he didn't become a household word until he made that speech at the Atlanta exposition. And that's when blacks said, he's not our leader. Because they felt like he, is settling for less, And what he was trying to do, he was trying to tell you, you're going to have to start from the bottom and work your way up. But his opponent said, no, it starts from the top and it trickles down. And they wanted him to be more of a fighter. But he was a nonviolent person. But he was thoroughly about education, and he wanted education to be as common as rain and sunshine.
Yeah, I'm impressed with the man in terms of, where he was able to start at Tuskegee. He helped, it was already a foundation, was something there, but he was a visionary. He had a vision for where he could actually be. And it's kind of like it's interesting because, black folks, it seems like, we're kind of going ass backwards as a people. I mean, they have people like Booker T. Washington and William Monroe Trotter and Marcus Garvey. These were visionary men. These were men. They had courage. They had what they call testicular fortitude, and they believed in something. They fought for it. Very articulate. But now we got people that got a lot of access to wealth, but we're afraid to do anything. It's like I saw Magic Johnson a couple of years ago in Memphis. He was a Freedom Award recipient for the Civil Rights Museum down here. And he said something that was very powerful. He said today we have more black millionaires than black businesses. So back in 1960, we had more black businesses than millionaires. There could not have been a civil rights movement without a black business class or middle class or working class people. You look at the Montgomery bus boycott. There was a black people movement. And what people don't understand is when you think about the civil rights movement, they got you thinking about the white college kids coming down for Freedom Summit in Mississippi back in 1964. The civil rights movement was a black movement. It was about promoting black manhood and protecting black womanhood. The Montgomery bus boycott was about, we tired of these bus drivers. We're tired of the Montgomery police raping our black women, disrespecting our black women, disrespecting our black family. It's time for us to man up. You had black men coming out of World War II, black business owners. We was able to have a successful 381 straight day boycott. We had a strong black community. We controlled our media. You had the black radio. You had black businesses. You had black people that were organized through the union. E.D. Nixon, the Pullman Porters, Mary Jo Robinson, her sisters organized them. We had a sense of purpose, but we were forced by the system of white supremacy to work together for something. It's like people were forced to work with Booker T. Washington, black folks, because of Jim Crow. And now you look at what's going on right now, what's different by 2015 from 1915? Black folks are still catching hell in America. You got black folks getting lynched by the system every day. It's like you had black folks getting physically lynched by the system back in 1915. I mean, we losing our civil rights progress we made back in the 60s. So, I think Booker T. Washington, it's a good time to revisit him right now, to revisit the teachings of this man.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree with that. And that's why I want people to learn to read more, read what he was all about, and read what he was trying to do. And maybe we can benefit today from what he was trying to do.
I mean, 'cause a lot of folks benefited. I mean, Marcus Garvey was a disciple of Booker T. Washington. When people say that Booker T. Washington was an Uncle Tom, he's talking about supporting black businesses. Because one thing he did do, when he got the money from white people like Carnegie, he was going to take the money and invest in black businesses. He controlled the black press. He controlled black businesses throughout the country. Before there was he had the National Negro Business League, right? Before there was an Urban League.
Right.
He had all this stuff. I mean, he was a visionary.
Also had the National Health League. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all this stuff before the government got involved. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's about do for self. And we got to get back to that because Marcus Garvey, the reason why he came over here and became who he became was because he was corresponding with Booker T. Washington while he was in Jamaica. He wanted to build a similar organization to Tuskegee. But when he met with Benny with Moulton and all them guys, he said, well, the hell with that. Let me start my own organization. This is after Booker T. Washington died. So Marcus Garvey, you look at, okay, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Louis Farrakhan, all their parents and stuff, they were Garveyites. So you won't have a Nation of Islam, you would not have black power without Booker T. Washington existing at Tuskegee. You would not have any of that stuff. Sister Paulette, yeah, I'm here. We got another call. I'm sorry. It's like, Mm-hmm. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I agree with, I was agreeing with the findings, yeah.
We got a caller, I think, from Louisiana, 318. You on the air? Welcome to w.e.b.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, how you doing? Welcome. What's your name?
I'm fine. I wanted to know how y'all felt about the black community trying to turn negative connotations such as the N-word or being called a monkey and trying to turn it around into something positive. Is that something y'all agree with or no?
What's your name?
Tiana.
Tiana, thanks for calling in. Well, Sister Paulette, what do you got to say about that?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
She said, I'm against, go ahead, say it again, sister.
How do y'all feel about members of the black community trying to turn around things like the N-word or being called a monkey and trying to, they put it in comedy now, it's a regular speech. How do you feel about it being a part of our regular day speech? Is it something you're opposed to, or is the flipping of the word or the connotation okay with you?
Well, thank you for that question. So basically, you understand, Sister Paulette? Okay.
Yes, I understand what she's saying. I feel that anything positive, if you could turn anything and make it be positive, I'm all for it. But it's going to have to be on an individual basis, because I believe education starts in the home, and if you listen, because children is a pattern after their parents, and whatever your children see you do or whatever your children see you say, they're going to say it. So I believe that if you start with positivity in the home, it's going to rub off on your children. If your children see you paying your bills, they will pay their bills. I mean, not pay their bills, they will pay their bills on time. If they see you being respectful to other people, they're going to be respectful to other people. So I think children are a pattern of their parenting. So I believe that every home, it will rub off. If people see you doing good and doing positive, I think it's going to rub off. So I'm all for any kind of positive change with the N-word or any other word. So to answer your question, I agree that if they could turn it into a positive, I'm all for it.
Well, I don't have a problem with people using the word nigger at all. I really don't have a problem with that, because if you have knowledge of yourself, you already know who you are. It's like what Brother Dick Gregory said, if you can believe yourself to be a nigger, how come you can't believe yourself to be a billionaire? If somebody call you, hey, billionaire, and you don't answer to that, but somebody say, hey, nigger, and everybody turn around, then I guess you can think you was a billionaire, so why you think you a nigger? You are whatever you answer to. And your actions speak louder than words. My problem with us as a people is that this is why we have the situation now with the Booker T. Washington murder conspiracy thing, because we're so afraid to approach things that we deem harmful, that we see as taboo. My grandfather, who was from Mississippi, he was in World War II. He was a member of a Red Ball Express, the famous Red Ball Express that supplied, there were, I guess, trucks that black men drove to supply George Patton's 3rd Army Army while he was moving through Europe. Because a lot of people don't know there was a lot of black folks like Medgar Evers that was involved in the Normandy D-Day invasion. But if you look at Saving Private Ryan, you only see like some suspect quasi-Negro, I guess, Ben Diesel. There was no black people in Saving Private Ryan, although my grandfather and people like Medgar Evers was involved in the Normandy D-Day invasion. And he said that Eisenhower, who was the Allied Supreme Commander, future President Dwight D. Eisenhower, he told them basically that if you want to survive this war, when you hit that beach and gunfire is shooting at you, do not run away from the gunfire. You have a better chance of surviving running towards the gunfire. And you think that's crazy. But really think about it. You're more exposed running away than you are running towards danger. A lot of us fear this danger of like, oh, the nigger word or this and that. But like, it's not a hate crime if somebody call you hating N-word and drag you down the street behind a truck. It's a hate crime when somebody say, hey, nigger, we're going to drive this nigger down the street on the back of our truck. It is a hate crime. But saying N-word is a lot of words that begin with the letter N. You know, for example, I'm glad you brought this up, sisters. Great, because I'm going to read you a little bit of the New York Times obituary for Booker T. Washington. They said, this is from 1915, the New York Times. No one knows the day, nor even with certainty, the year of the birth of Booker T. Washington. But the day of his death was announced by telegraph and cable to many parts of the world. He began life as just another little nigger. This is the New York Times. They said he began life as just another little nigger, not nigger, on a plantation of a family named Burroughs in Hellsport, Virginia. So that gives you an idea. So the New York Times thought it was newsworthy to use the word nigger, and it means something. Why we have a problem limiting ourselves? But I'm going to get off that. I digress. But I was just trying to make that point. If the New York Times said they could use the word nigger, how come you can't use it? So, like, also with Booker T. Washington, like we talk about, you know, all the suicides. Like you talking about William Monroe Trotter. I always assume, Sister Paulette, that William Monroe Trotter committed suicide on his birthday, which was April 7, 1934. But you're saying that he possibly was killed as well, too, correct?
I just don't. Well, based on his sister says, no, he was too strong for that, you know, to do that. She did not feel it was a suicide. His sister didn't. Mm-hmm. And if I was going to, research his death, I would pull the death certificate and, research it, from there. But I have not, I just pulled the articles that he, jumped to his death, but I have not, researched his, health records or anything like that.
But it is interesting, like this long list of people, it seems, that committed quote-unquote suicide connected to Booker T. Washington. Because you talk about the Assistant Attorney General, the first black one, William Henry Lewis. They say his daughter committed suicide, correct? She's just 14 years old?
Yeah, she was a teenager, a teenager, and they said that she was his youngest child, and they said she committed suicide.
Wow, at 14. I'm just trying to, it's like he came from a very affluent, wealthy family, right? William Henry Lewis was well known and prominent, correct? He was the Assistant Attorney General.
He was against Booker T. Washington at first.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't make it to the funeral. So he spoke at a church on Booker T. Washington's behalf, and he said, I didn't always agree with him, but when he came to Boston, I joined in with his most violent and bitterest critics. That's what William Henry Lewis said. And he said he learned to love Booker T. Washington after he found out that Booker T. Washington was loyal to his race. So he sided with Booker T. Washington, but his wife did not want him around Booker T. Washington because she was scared that something might happen being in Booker T. Washington's presence.
And also, you mentioned earlier Warren Logan, his wife They said she jumped out the top of the administration building. But then you say you try to look for a death certificate.
I read that she was extremely nervous, just like they were saying Booker T. Washington was extremely nervous, and I read somewhere else where Monroe Trotter, extremely nervous. I can understand where all this extreme nervousness is coming from.
Yeah, so those cold words you think.
Everybody extremely nervous, you know. And they said that she went to the administration building when all the trustees was gathering on the campus and jumped to her death. I don't, you know, and see, women wore dresses back then. They didn't, you know, wear pants.
Right.
I mean, I should have had some pair. But I just can't see this black lady, you know, going to the fourth floor, all these men arriving on campus, and she's jumping out of a window with her dress flying up. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Maybe it did. I don't know. I didn't research her death. All I know is I tried to find her death certificate, and I was told it didn't exist.
You know, one thing, I mean, you have did a lot. I want to commend you because, like, your book is not a big book, but it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. You give such powerful information. I mean, like, a man once told me, he said, Ron, just because you don't read a book don't mean it didn't change the world. You know what I'm saying? Your words create worlds. It creates a different reality. And people got to understand that there are always more than what is at eye level. It's more than meets the eye. You got to go beyond the surface to really get to what you want. And some people might call you a radical for doing this radical approach. But really it's logic, you know, and, you know, to be a radical is the root, you know, to get to the root. So, you know, I don't have a problem with a person who, you know, who's radical thinking because you're all about, you know, let's get to the genesis or the root of the problem here. But we can't solve the problem. We can treat the symptoms. As a nurse, you can't treat the symptoms by knowing the causes of the illness. You know, you got to know what you're dealing with. You know, it's not just good enough to treat the symptoms. You're trying to cure somebody. You're trying to heal somebody. So,
if you talk to any nurse, they will tell you that how hard it is to go to nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try and you see something, you have to try to understand it. And all I was trying to do was understand it, and it never made sense to me. And I talked to a pastor about it, and he said, I heard it just as clear. You are to write it in a book. He said, write it up in a book and just put it out there, let other people see it. And that's what I did. I'm not out to try to criticize anybody, but those are my findings. Somebody else can go and maybe they will find different findings. But for now, that's what I found.
We thank you for your contribution. Is there anything else you want to add? Like, let us know about that we didn't touch upon in this conversation.
There's a lot of people out there would like to write a book about anything that's of interest to them. If you would write down infobuck@juno.com, he can give you pointers on how to get your books published because there's a lot of information out there that people would like, and he can help you to get your books published. And also, I would like to just add, if you have not had a colonoscopy, and if you're over 50 years old, I encourage you to have a colonoscopy, get your blood pressure checked, get your diabetes checked, and, you know, we got the holidays coming up. Be careful what you eat and take care of your body. That's it.
That sounds very wonderful. And I also want to say, I want to ask you this question a bit in my mind because of the paraphrase Einstein, Albert Einstein. He said, imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Like, it's like to me, wow, the circumstantial evidence, like you had to go through the archives, the original documents were missing in the archives. So how important, what role does your imagination play in formulating your theory about what happened to Booker T. Washington based on limited, evidence?
I thought somebody was playing some kind of trickery.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was some trickery involved.
And so what's the most important trait you say you need to have to be a researcher on your level, at your caliber? What is the most important trait to have or characteristic?
Dedication. And stick-to-itness. Dedication and stick-to-itness. Yeah, some people want to start on a book on Monday, and they want to be through with it by the end of the week.
It don't work like that.
You have to have patience. Yeah, you have to have patience.
Sister Paulette?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's kind of like a little overtime. It's good. I was very excited about the show. A lot of great feedback already. People love the show. They look it on Amazon.com, about to buy your books, about to get a lot of business coming your way. I just want to ask you, because we get a chance to talk about William Howard Taft. I know that he saw Booker T. Washington when he went up to Yale to speak on his last visit, on his last public appearance.
Right.
Excuse me, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about him a little bit, your role you think he played?
Well, actually, they saw him. Someone documented that they saw Booker T. Washington talking with William Howard Taft, who was the ex-president at that time, at Yale, where Booker T. Washington was to speak. And William Howard Taft is a member of Skull and Bones. And I found it interesting that he was a member, and that's their headquarters, up there in Connecticut, and that's where Booker T. Washington made his last speech. The thing is, there were 3,000 people there, and I talked to a Boule member, and he said, "Oh hell, everybody knows Booker T. Washington was murdered. The Yale cook put the poison in his food."
Wow.
So, and I consider that from the horse's mouth, because that Boule member is connected with them. So this is what when I was looking at the headlines for New York, the headlines was that Booker T. Washington buried today, and I was looking at another article in the newspaper in New York, and it said this group, they didn't call them Skull and Bone, they didn't call them that, but they said when William Howard Taft arrived, they gave him a standing ovation. And I'll always wonder, did they give him this standing ovation because of a job well done? That's, and I'm just wondering. I'm not saying that's what it is. I wonder why he got that standing ovation.
Yeah,
and I recognize many people. Huh?
I said, well, William Howard Taft, his family were founding members of Skull and Bones, and he was not only a United States president, but Supreme Court justice.
Right, he was up there. And also, William Howard Taft is the one that selected William Lewis for that assistant attorney general job.
That's interesting.
I know. And they say, why would we need an assistant? We don't have enough work for the main person. So why would the assistant general, the general need an assistant when we won't have enough work for him? Why would Taft put William Lewis in that position? I don't know.
That's fascinating. You raised so many questions.
Yeah, you know why it is, and that's why I want your listeners, if they got a better view than mine, let me know. I want to know. So that's just my opinion based on my findings. They might find something totally different.
That's true, but I'm glad you put it out there, because now we're creating content for people to access. Because before, last week, before you did that thing with Lance Sturr, it was hard to find anything on the conspiracy, but now it's going to be out there. And once the internet takes hold of it, it becomes viral. So, you already put the information on your book. You already had the preparation to do so. You said you was visited by Booker T. Washington, correct?
Yeah, in my dream I'm going, it's almost like he was with me, letting me know, look, you could just feel his presence. And until it's soaked in, and then it's almost like when he was sure that I got it, he just kind of floated away. It's like that.
Wow, and that was January 3rd, 2007.
I felt his presence so strongly. Oh, I just felt it, and it was on January 16th. I remember, because when I realized it, I started. It kind of scared me at first, and I started curling up in a fetal position. And I went and talked to my friend. He was in the other room because he was sick, and I was taking care of him. And I said, that's when I realized that assassination really occurred. And he said, they assassinated this man. And my friend, he's 88. He said, I tried to tell you that. His dad was the one that got kicked out of the church for announcing that they did it. And his dad lived to be 98 years old. And now this man is 88. And his father got kicked out of the Baptist church because he got up there and told people Booker T. Washington didn't die a natural death. They told him he couldn't preach anymore in the Baptist church, and he didn't.
Well, that was surprising. I mean, the Baptist church treated Dr. King like he was a pariah, too. I mean, he couldn't even like, preach at pulpits in certain churches in Alabama. You know, so it doesn't surprise me how the establishment treat people that want to know the truth. Now, with the Yale cook, was the Yale cook? Did you get the name of the Yale cook? Was he or she a Haitian?
Oh, I don't know. Because he was. I guess he's just an employee, and he just said that. The Boule member. He just said, "Oh hell! Everybody knows Booker T. Washington was murdered. The Yale cook put the poison in his food." He didn't say he was Haitian or whatever, but he also said on the ride home, and I wrote that in the book. On the ride home, they put cat hairs in his food and choked him. And Mother Theora said there was somebody on that train that was not a part of the situation that put something to his lips. And that's the same thing the Boule member said. They put cat hairs. And Mother Theora was saying this from she said the spirit tells me that something is not right about his grave. And when she walked to the grave, she said, she told her family, "Get me out of here, get me." She said, "Something ain't right." She just knew something wasn't right. She didn't say what it was, but she said, "The spirit tells me." She didn't say what wasn't right, but she said, something is not right about that grave.
Oh, wow. And so Booker T. Washington was also a Mason, right? Was he a Mason?
Yeah, he was. I read somewhere that he was, yeah.
Okay. So that is nothing. People got this thing about Masonry. Like, I guess Steve Coakley exposed a lot of things to people. And people like, say, well, he's a Mason. He's a part of this Illuminati thing. What do you believe there's a such thing as an Illuminati? I mean, based on your research.
The Boule member told me. He said, everybody knows Booker T. Washington was murdered. He said, and the Illuminati is real. That's what he told me. Now, he told me that. And I didn't ask him. And I asked him, I say, why did you join in with all these deadly folks? And I said, you need to read up on this stuff you done joined into. He said, I think I will. He
didn't know what he was a part of. Well, he's not the only person that does that stuff, though. A lot of us do that. We vote for people we don't know anything about. We do that.
We join in thinking that it's oh, girl, I'm going to pledge AKA. Girl, I'm going to pledge Delta. And I'm going, do you know what that is? You just know that you're a part of something. You have no clue as to, in fact, I used to be a cheerleader at the University of South Alabama, and one cheerleader was an AKA, and the other, there were three blacks. One cheerleader was AKA, and one was a Delta. So they was pulling me each way. Oh, you need to join us. No, you need to join us. But I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't join AKA. Because if you join them, they're going to make you sleep with those guys. I say, the hell they will. Ain't nobody going to make me do that. I mean, you just going to tell me what I'm going to do to be a part of your sisterhood? Because if I got in, I would combine both of y'all. And we'd become as one. I'm not going to have that person over there and that person over here. This is like the Hatfield and the McCoys. I mean, I'm not going to. No, I ain't going to be joining. What I'm going to join in, and if you're fighting against somebody else, we're supposed to all be sisters.
Right, supposedly.
There's power in unity. So.
Oh, wow. So I guess, man, wow, that's amazing. So you don't think that he was murdered, like, they said the Haitian, but I know when I read your book, you say he spoke out against what the U.S. Army was doing in Haiti.
Yeah, and I know what else. My nephew, he was in a barbershop. He's about maybe 30-something years old. He said they got, how you get in a barbershop and you start talking about different stuff, and they started talking about Booker T. Washington, and it was a Haitian in there. And the Haitian said, we killed Booker T. Washington.
he took pride in that, didn't he? Oh, my God.
We killed Booker T. Washington.
Wow.
And he was Haitian. So they know. And one day I was at this friend of mine's house, and there was a Haitian there, and he said, "Wait a minute, these are my people." I said, "They may be your people, but they done something they wasn't supposed to do." You know. So I gave him the book. You know, he was shocked. He said, he was kind of disappointed that, you know, his people got this stigma on him that they killed this leader.
Mhm.
But I think maybe they were misinformed to think that Booker T. Washington was doing things that he wasn't supposed to be doing on their behalf, you know. And I think maybe they were disappointed. The reason they got a Haitian to do it.
Mm.
You know, it's just like with Socrates. They got, you know, outside person to come in and give him that poison.
Mhm.
And you tell us when your feet start getting cold, you know.
Wow.
And the poison just worked its way. The poison just, you know, kind of worked its way up. But let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Based on that interview, do you see anybody maybe want to call me up and bless me out or cuss me out or anything like that?
I don't know if people are, I don't think people like, you know, like this thing called internet courage, the social media thing is like, you know, a lot of people talk a lot of crazy stuff online, but they don't really do too much of anything. It's just a bunch of talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are more curious and want to find out the information for themselves. Like, this is really a shock to their system to really think about, you know, it's like a cognitive dissonance for them to think about, whoa, you know, you're just a messenger. You know, you got this message. You got this concern. You was on a mission. You had this assignment from some otherworldly place.
Mm-hmm.
You was called and chosen for this mission, and you did your job. And you given reasonable doubt that there might be something more that meets the eye when it comes to the death of Booker T. Washington. And a lot of times people don't want to think about these things because once you think about it and do your research, once you know for sure, then it presents some type of responsibility you have. Like, you know, now you know what are you going to do with this information. What you did with it, you put it out there for the public. Mm-hmm. So you did your job. It's like I'm an artist. I paint a picture. After a while, it doesn't really matter what I think of why I did what I did with the picture. Like, why did you paint the picture? It doesn't really matter. It's what you bring to the picture. Because a lot of times you look at a painting in a museum or gallery, it's not what the artist thinks. It's like, how does your experiences in life help you to explain or articulate the meaning of this picture? It's like, once you put this information out there, then people will have to be forced to reflect upon their own life experiences. It's like, okay, I know the time when people obviously told me this and that, and I found out it was a lie. And it was very devastating. You know what I'm saying? Because these folks you trust all your life. Mm-hmm. And you thought they'll be the last people to hurt you, but we all know as we get older that the folks that can really hurt you are the folks that know you and that, you know, they are close to you. Mm-hmm. They could do more damage to you than a stranger. Mm-hmm. So Booker T. Washington had a lot of folks in his circle that he was close to that did a lot of damage to him in the end.
Right.
So it's very Shakespearean.
They you know, they had to, you know, you didn't have to, but I just believe, like I think I mentioned to you before, you know, they said that Booker T. Washington was fooling around with Warren Logan's wife.
Right.
You know, that, you know, if I want to discredit you, I will spread rumors. You know, you're saying a man's so sick, and then how sick is he if he's doing that, you know? And plus, he's out of town, you know, quite a bit. So they said it was. Oh, I know. When I was on the show, I couldn't think of the word. They said it was a terrific scandal around Booker T. Washington's death. And you know, a scandal that Booker T. Washington was. What they said, it was Warren Logan having an affair with a woman. But when I called and asked them, I said, what was it? No, it was Booker T. Washington and Warren Logan's wife. That's what they said. But, you know, I didn't want to, you know, that's a different situation there. But they said there was a scandal involved.
Wow. So, you know, I was thinking about what you said because I was thinking about what happened recently in Jackson, Mississippi with Mayor Chokwe Lumumba. his son is currently running for his seat. They're going to have to do a runoff election on April 22nd. But with Chokwe, it was interesting because they kept on changing his cause of death within 24 hours of his demise. It's like it went from one thing to another. So people kept on saying, well, he was sick. He had a cold. Well, how can a cold translate you to you dying a couple hours later? Like, how can having just a cold, getting treated for the cold? And then they kept on talking about, well, he was sick lately. I kept on hearing people in the news saying, they said he was sick. Lately he's been sick. And then one of the county supervisors said that he believed that he was murdered.
Yeah.
And they tried to write him off, saying, "Oh, you're just crazy, man. He one of those loud mouth. You know how you got people that are very like flamboyant in public life. They're very loud and bodacious. But he one of them guys. He's speaking his mind. And he basically said that he was murdered. And they had supposed to do a second autopsy because the state didn't want to do an autopsy on him because they said he died of like a stroke or a heart attack. They kept on changing the cause of death. They let you know what time it was. I mean, like, you don't really know what happened. Well, you know that something happened and it wasn't natural. That's how you feel. You don't really. I don't really know. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I felt that just by the official story keep on changing that it wasn't right. So I can't prove it, but I just don't feel it's right.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm really glad that you had a lot of callers, and it was a full, it's like a full 2 hours.
Yeah, it was full. But every time I talk to you, the time go by too fast.
Oh, really?
I can't get enough talking to you. I like talking to you. I know I'm just like, this guy crazy. But he's just like, you got a great spirit. I think you're very sincere in what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, I'm not.
And very courageous. I think you're very courageous because, you called down some names and people, man. People ain't going to be comfortable with that.
Oh, no. I mean, like I tell people, if you're not comfortable with me, then you should not have allowed this stuff to be put in a book. Because I found it through my reading. So I'm not a person that you need to be scared of. And it's not me that you need to be scared of. It's you trying to get through them pearly gates. That's what you need to be scared of.
I heard that.
Don't let that interfere with your status with God. So don't let me interfere with you getting through those pearly gates. So if you're doing something that is not of Christ, it's time we all wake up. So you don't need to be mad at me because I'm not giving you anything and I'm not taking anything away from you. So all I did was put down my findings. That's it.
All right. Well, Sister Paulette, I want to thank you for taking the time to put down your findings and for spending your own resources because you didn't get no grant from a foundation to do this.
Oh, no,
you did this on your own. It's incredible, and you had to really put some things. You are a true forensic artist, I would say. A forensic historian. I mean, historians to me, I like forensic experts because you got so little. Sometimes you don't have that much to go on, so you got to have an ability to recreate things. And I mean, I just want to thank you once again for putting this out there and for creating this food for thought for our consumption. And so, if people want to book you for their show or for their conference or whatever, because I think it's going to be a big year for you next year, 2015, the 100th anniversary of Booker T. Washington's death. How can people book you for interviews or have you speak at their organizations? What's the best way to do that?
Infobuck.com. I think it's infobuck@juno.com.
Okay.
You can just, get in contact with me through there.
Okay, I want to thank you once again, Sister Paulette, for giving the gift of your time to our show and platform. You have really piqued the curiosity of a lot of my people. I'm getting a lot of feedback from Facebook and from Blog Talk Radio, the chat room, and from emails. I just want to thank you to keep on doing what you're doing, to keep producing and pushing. And I want to read a quote that you're probably familiar with that's from your hero, Booker T. Washington. He said, "I have learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position one has reached in life as by the obstacles which one has overcome while trying to succeed." And you have definitely succeeded, sister, against all odds, and we love you madly, and we look forward to having you back on again in the very near future.
Okay, thank you so very much, and I enjoy talking to your listeners, and if they can solve the problem and they can solve the mystery, please let me know.
We'll definitely let you know. Thank you so much. I know people be getting some work
let me
today.
know.
Yes, you got some new fans today. I know that much.
Great. Okay. Okay.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. And thank you, family, for listening once again to another wonderful edutainment edition of w.e.b News and Radio. I'm your host, Brother Ron, a.k.a. R2C2H2, the Artivist, and I want to let you know that you are all beyond category, and we love you madly.